A very good evening and namaskaram to all of you. On behalf of PAALAM, I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to the fifth day session of our Raga Anubhav festival. Those who've been coming regularly would recall that the first day we had Vagadishwari, the second day featured Todi, then the third day we had Sahana, and then yesterday Bhairavi, and today we are here to feature the Raga Kamboji. The whole idea of this Raga Anubhav festival is to give a detailed account of each ragam so that our experience, our joy of understanding and then trying to hear that ragam makes it much more blissful experience for us. So every day we have a lecture demonstration on the respective raga, followed by a one raga, one Kriti concert by another musician. Today we are very, very honored to have with us one of the most renowned musician, scholar and guru, Dr.Sriram Parasuram here. Please give him a big hand. As we all know, he is well versed in all the three systems of music, Carnatic, Hindustani and Western, and has been doing extensive research on the various genres of music. So it's really very, very fortunate that he is here today to elucidate and enlighten us about Raga Kamboji. Thank you.
Ye Maya Rama Brahmendra Dulakunaina Nimaya Teliya Vasama Sri Rama Ye Maya Rama Brahmendra Dulakunaina Nimaya Teliya Vasama Sri Rama Ye Maya Rama Brahmendra Dulakunaina Nimaya Teliya Vasama Sri Rama Ye Maya Rama Brahmendra Dulakunaina Nimaya Teliya Vasama Sri Rama Re Maya Rama Brahmendra Dulakunaina Nimaya Teliya Vasama Sri Rama Ye Maya Rama Rama Namaskaram, Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. What a wonderful, bright, powerful, dynamic raga Kamboji is. When Kamboji is sung in the process or in the course of a concert, it's like Deepavali. You know? Of course, the Deepavali without the inane Supreme Court pronouncing no firecrackers. This is a Deepavali with firecrackers, where the whole sky, the whole panorama of the experience of our great music catches fire. A very beautiful fire, a brilliance which is rarely seen in any other raga. You know, I consider Kamboji to be one of the brightest ragas. It will bring a smile upon the lips of the most depressed person in the audience. You know, such a powerful force it is. Of course, the content of our kritis, whether it be a Muthuswami Dikshitar or whether it be a Tyagaraja, or in this case, I began with this composition, Emayya Rama of Bhadrachala Ramadasa, the content remains almost in the same firmament of the composer in terms of the bhakti or the prayer or the philosophy of Dikshitar, whatever be it. But the way that the lyrics get embedded in this very bright and brilliant raga is what makes the difference. So today we shall deal with the idea that is Kamboji. Of course, I am sure there is nobody among the Rasikas who have not heard Kamboji, say 100 times, 200 times, 500 times. Yeah? So all of you have heard a lot of Kamboji, right? In previous lives, in this life. Because Kamboji is a very, very, very old raga. Purva Prasiddha raga. You know, slowly you should acquire some knowledge about terms like this. Purva Prasiddha means famous from before. Now what this before is, nobody knows. There is a mention of, in a work of 7th century itself, of a raga called Kamboji. Whether this is the same raga that we are singing today, we are not sure. Some of the names of ragas occur in ancient history also. But we have seen that the name of the raga gets maintained while many elements within the structure of the raga, the melody of the raga get changed. Even in the case of Kamboji, then there is, of course, the element of, many people speak about the early Sangam period, the Tamil musical forms of the Pan. Takeshi is supposed to be the equivalent of Pan corresponding to Kamboji. But then, as a musicologist, I find very big links which are missing in terms of claiming this, because there are no continued evidences and sources. Somebody says Takeshi, and we continue to say that. So this is one point where I bring it up on the side. When we talk about Pan and equivalences with ragas, there are the tenuous links cannot substantiate the claims in terms of this Pan is this, because the system of the Pans and how they describe the melodies are still not known. The names are known and we kind of have an idea of the tunes. But as a raga, the rules, the grammar are not codified anywhere. We have certain dissertations and theories and Periyava, Nama Periyava solli, Tevaram Padrava, Oduvar, experts we say, but to establish linkages across 2000 years, you need much more than that, you know, if you are a serious researcher. Of course, we keep saying this, so we will keep saying Takeshi is equivalent to Kamboji without going into that topic today. That's a different topic. We will pick it up some other time. Sangeeta Makaranda, 7th century, is one of the first treatises to mention Kamboji. And all subsequent works also, including Sarangadeva's Sangeeta Ratnakara, mention Kamboji. Somewhere down the line, one scholar says that it lost its status as a very essential raga to Hari Kamboji around the 16th, 17th centuries. You know, the strength and power status of a raga also is like fashion cycles. They have some periods where raga will dominate, and then it may lay quiet for some time, and yet again another era will pick it up and, take it up. And so Hari Kamboji seems to have been a very important mela, much more important than Kamboji in the 16th, 17th century. There are evidences to that. But look at it now. Today Kamboji is a much more powerful force than Hari Kamboji. Do you agree? Yeah. So we have to also be alive to the fact that these things are going to keep changing. They are not written in stone somewhere. As culture evolves, as people's tastes and choices evolve, there are going to be times when certain ragas will rule and certain ragas will be on the ebb. So this constant play will be there all forever. There is another, in certain Kerala texts and historical references, there is a raga called Kamodari, which is also very close to Kamboji, which is almost the same as Kamboji. There are compositions of Swatirnal, Iriamman Thambi, etc. in this raga. But when they are sung, they are exactly like Kamboji. But the name given to it is Kamodari. The pre-Trimurti period, the period before Dikshita Tyagaraja and Shyama Shastri, also has a lot of compositions in Kamboji. Where does the name Kamboji come from? We have very, the nomenclature of the Carnatic system is very logical. So when something comes out of logic, where it doesn't have any reference or a root or a etymology related to something which is in the tradition, then you have to question, why is it named Kamboji? Kalyani okay, Shankarabharanam okay, there are roots in terms of a deity, a description, Shanmugpriya is okay, a Saveri is okay. These have certain antiquities and precedents. But where does Kamboji come from? So there is one theory, it's again a theory, that did it come from the present day Cambodia, Cambodia, or there are enough references for another place, somewhere near present day Ayodhya, also was called the Cambodia kingdom. So whether is it a melody from that place? Because you should remember that 1,000 years back, 2,000 years back, this was a cultural continuity. Even today's Cambodia, you will see Hanuman, you will see Ganesha, thousands and thousands of Ganeshas, which were all decapitated, in the revolutions which came in the 17th, 18th centuries. But we can see that there is a continuity of the thought process, of the process of Hindu culture. So this is, it could be possible that, in fact, Dr. S. Ramanathan used to claim that Kamboji, the name itself, comes from a melody in Cambodia. Yeah. But then it's something which we can keep in mind. Because we also find this name mentioned in a lot of geographical texts. In the Raghuvamsha, there is a mention of a Kamboja leader, or a ruler, whom Raghu conquered in the Raghuvamsha. It is quite possible that, so that's what leads us to believe that this melody could have come from somewhere near the Raghukula Vamsha center, which is Ayodhya. So Kamboji la lot of compositions. Like I say, the idea of a raga we get from the compositions. A raga doesn't happen, a guru doesn't teach you a raga primarily. The Kriti teaches you the raga. So, when you look a little closer into how the raga manifests itself, the rules of the raga, the dharma of the raga, the beauty of the raga, the prayogas, the murchanas, it is the Kriti and the varnams and the compositions which reveal this to you. Kamboji, according to me, is a Ghana raga, that is a major raga, and a Rakti raga at the same time. In a sense, Kamboji has that immediacy and the appeal that a Rakti raga has, which probably a Todi or a Shankarabharanam may not have. This is my personal view. That is, you are instantly with the raga in one phrase in Kamboji. Not in terms of recognizing the raga. Recognizing the raga, all of you can recognize in one phrase, whether it's a Kalyani or whether it's a Todi. But Kamboji, the appeal of the raga, the Rakti, the Ranjaka of the raga is very immediate, like it is with a Sahana or a Begada or a Kedara Gola or, you know. So it is but at the same time, it is not only a phrase-based, Murchana-based raga, it is as big as to cover a lot of imaginative possibilities. The reason why I say this is because the mechanism of Kamboji seems to be following a particular mette. In a sense, I began with Emaya Rama. That Kriti never goes below the Madhyama. It's all Uttaranga Pradhana. Emaya Rama Brahmendra Dulakunaina Mimaya Deliya Vasama Sri Rama, Emaya Rama. So the Pallavi is all above Panchama and surely above Madhyama. Even in the Charana, where usually a Kriti will go to explore the middle regions and the lower regions, Narudanuchu Naruludama Doravanuchu Yadavulu Narudanuchu Naruludama Doravanuchu Yadavulu Varudanuchu Gopasadulu Karivarada Bhadradri Puranilaya Ramadasa. So, the entire thing, even in the Charana, is above Madhyama. So, the first feature which you have to appreciate and recognize about Kamboji, the way we sing it today, is that it is definitely an Uttaranga Pradhana Raga. The beauty of the Raga manifests itself like a firecracker in the upper registers, in the middle and upper registers. Marakata Valli Mana Sasmarami Marakata Valli Mana Sasmarami Marakata Valli. So you see that if you don't have a voice which can project, which can deliver in the middle and upper octaves, I think you should not choose to perform Kamboji. It needs a certain brilliance. It needs a certain amount of power. That is also one of the reasons why I was going through a discography of who all have sung Kamboji. Kamboji seems to be a male favorite. So it seems, empirically, you know, there are people who may disagree with me. I'm not saying that the great lady singers have not excelled in it. Absolutely they have excelled in it. But in terms of numbers, 90% of the Kamboji that you will hear are male renditions. That's probably the reason why, that is probably due to the fact that this raga required a kind of a projection, which is not fair. I'm not justifying this, okay? Carnatic music is exceptionally biased in favor of the male singer. The aesthetics, the aritam is all goes against the grain of the nature of the female voice and female aesthetic. That is something which we have to live with. Otherwise you will say it is not sampradaya. The bias is woven into the sampradaya. Anyway, so one requires a great throw, a great amount of virtuosity in the upper octaves to choose Kamboji. So that is something which you have to acknowledge, because the kritis are all andarathil irukku ellame, prayogangal, sancharigal, murchanas are all parimala ranga payate. You know, even the Pallavis which are composed. Jagadisha Partha Sarathe. Again, because the raga shines in that region, or so we have gotten used to the fact. The aesthetics of Kamboji resides in very majestic, powerful singing, very unlike a Sahana or a Dujavanti or some of the other ragas. That is something which you have to live with, and it's a beautiful kind of a niche that Kamboji has. So the reason why I also call Kamboji a Rakti Raga is because the kind of phrases. What is a Rakti Raga? A Rakti Raga is defined by the fact that phrases, say 10 or 20 phrases, come to define the raga. Correct? Raktitvam nama practical paakumbodhu so it is this phrase which is Sahana. You don't need to sing the whole of Sahana to know it is Sahana. Just one phrase will reveal the entire raga. Kamboji also is like that. Even though it is a Ghana Raga and a major Raga, the part note, the Raga reveals itself. So when a great a musician composes a Pallavi, he or she will select a phrase that immediately blows open the Raga. That is why Parimala Ranga Pate. It's point blank in your face. There are no doubts. Especially in the singers in the previous generation, they believed in simple Pallavis which brought out the character of the raga immediately rather than structural complexities. Not that they were not capable. The idea behind, the aesthetic idea behind a Pallavi was to explore the raga more on the structural basis of a Sahitya line. So we will explore some of the phrases that make up this raga. There is a composition of Muthu Tandavar which brings out this idea of Raktitvam, phrase-based Kamboji. Adu marundoru tani marundu ambalatil kandene. 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 Adu marundu. That's it. The Pallavi is just that. Two statements. One descending statement and one ascending statement. Then, Tirumarundudan paadum marundu, Tillayambala taadum marundu. Tirumarundudan paadum marundu, Tillayambala taadum marundu. Iruvinaigal arukkum marundu, Ezhai irangum marundu. Iruvinaigal arukkum marundu, Ezhai irangum marundu. Adu marundoru tani marundu ambalatil kandene. Adu marundu. So the structure is just 4 phrases, but the whole raga comes to be described in these phrases. அதனால காம்போஜில மனோதர்மம் பண்றது கிட்டத்தட்ட ரொம்ப easy. In a Todi or a Shankarabharanam you can get lost. Because such defining phrases, even though there are very characteristic phrases, such absolutely defining phrases may not be there. Tada na 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 na. Tada na 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 ta na 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 ra na ri ta da na na na. This Daivata resting phrase. You can look at all the masters. This is the second resting place in the Alapana, usually, after the first part of the essay. You know, a raga is also not just one random continuous thing. A good artist will organize it like a story, having an opening, introducing the characters in it, then going to the middle of the story, developing the middle, and then coming to a climax and giving it a closure. So, and the structure வந்து காம்போஜில ரொம்ப easy. அதுக்கு சொல்ல வரேன். Easy-na, nothing is actually easy, but relatively, you know, it's Kamboji is almost a sure shot hit in a kacheri. Because even if you sing it badly, you know, you'll please a lot of people. Because the expectation in the minds of the Rasika is also met. Because these standard phrases, these very typical signature phrases, will resonate both in your mind as well as in my mind. So if I deliver it well, it's a job well done in terms of the success of the raga. You know? Whereas raga like Shankarabharanam, Todi and all, ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஒரு மாதிரி இருக்கும். That's been my experience both as a Rasika, a student and a performer, you know. கொன்றை தும்பை அணிந்த மருந்து கோதை மீது படர்ந்த மருந்து மன்றுள்ளே நின்றாடும் மருந்து மாணிக்க வாசகர் கண்ட மருந்து. What is it? கரி சனித பமகரிரீகா. அவ்வளோதான். It is no complex phrase at all. It is just a very beautiful avarohana. மன்றுள்ளே நின்றாடும் மருந்து மாணிக்க வாசகர் கண்ட மருந்து அது மருந்தொரு தனி மருந்து அம்பலத்தில் கண்டேனே. So in just one aroha avroha, you are able to reveal the raga in almost its complete form. And the phrase and the அளவுக்கு attractive and captivating இருக்கிறதுனால தான் a composition like this will work, even though it is not in a very explorative composition. எல்லாமே சரணம்ஸ் தான். சரணம் ஒரே ஒரு டியூன் தான். பட் அந்த டியூனில் அவ்வளவு காம்போஜி இருக்கு. It is packed with Kamboji. பாடுறவேருக்கு தெரியும், கேட்கறதுக்கு ஈஸியாக இருக்கும். The Dhaga Prayoga. அது மருந்தொரு, very important. Dagari Sanidama Pada Pamagasari Pamagasa Padasa. The introduction of the Kakali Nishada in the first statement itself. Sarasija. So Angem, the Nishadam, the Kakali Nishada gets introduced in the first phrase itself. In fact, historically, Rama Matya says that Kakali Nishadam only in Kamboji. Kakali Nishadam, the bigger variety of Nishada, for those who may not know the term. Later on, Venkatamaki goes hammer and tongs and criticizes Ramamatya. Ramamatya predates Venkatamaki. There is a 100-year gap. Whereas he says the Kamboji that we are singing during Venkatamaki's time is almost 90% Kaisiki Nishada. The Kakali Nishada, even in Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, is only an Alpa Prayoga. It comes very rarely, once or twice. So that being the case, how does Ramamatya say that the Nishada was a Kakali variety during his time? So definitely there was a time when the Kakali Nishada was much more prominent in Kamboji than it is now. Because Ramamatya is not a flippant or a frivolous Swaram Mela Kalanidhi is one of the most seminal works of Carnatic music. So that being the case, Ramamatya actually is the point at which there is a clear differentiation in terms of treatise treatment of both the north and the south. Till then, the treatises and the musicology is almost the same. We don't know what they're talking about. Whether the Sangeeta Ratnakaras, we don't know whether it is referring to the northern traditions or the southern traditions. Ramamatya is the first juncture where we are able to see a clear mention and description of South Indian practices of Carnatic music, so to say. So what I'm saying is that the Kakali Nishada Prayoga, which we all cherish in Kamboji, is always a bone of contention, where how much do you use it? When do you use it? In fact, today I can sing a Kamboji without that Prayoga and still it can be 100% Kamboji. You know, so contrast this with what Ramamatya says 500 years back, where he says it is entirely Kakali Nishada, Kamboji. In fact, in Venkatamakhi's the description of Kamboji, it is Sariga Padasa. It's Ma Ni Varja, Madhyama Nishada Varja on the Aroha. It's very clear. Later on, Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, because it flows in the same lineage of Venkatamakhi, he says, Subramanian Dikshiter says, Madhyama can occur, but it occurs as a Vakra Prayoga. Maga Pada, Apridam Varna. Only as a Vakra Prayoga it is given sanction. But then when we look at the compositions of Muthuswami Dikshiter, we see that this is not the case. He is also not adhering to this rule of Madhyama happening only in a Vakra Prayoga. So it is a complex reading of both the musicology and the performance practice or the compositional practice. Okay? So this is something which we have to bear in mind. Let us look at I always look at the Varna, the Varnam as the treasure house for knowing about the Raga. So let us look at the Atatala Varna. We will not have time. We will go to the Charanam, because the Charana, the Chittaswaras reveal more of the content of the Ragas in terms of where the Nyasa Swaras are, what are the Amsha Swaras, where does the composer believe the phrases of the Raga take us deeper into Kamboji. Sarva Bhauma Saka La Loka Abhiramasa Sarva Bhauma Saka La Loka Abhiramasa Nidapa Damagarigasa Risa ni padasa, riga ma padasa, arva bhauma. So here itself we know that the Shadja, the upper regions are very powerful. The second Chittaswara, Sarva Bhauma Saka La Loka Bhiramari Riga Riga Riri Sanida Padasa Sa Padasa Riga Sa Riga Ma Pasa Riga Ma Padasa Nida Magasa Padasa Riga Ma Padasa Arva Bhauma. So we have a Nida Magasa. I don't know whether it is that is how we have been singing it. It definitely feels a little out of the Kamboji that we are used to. But then the Varnas are sometimes also places where some rare usages still persists. So sometimes it is maybe a wrong thing to systematize them and put it into our grid of Aroha. Correct? There are so many Varnas which have this problem. Sahana, Shankarabharanam, Saranga, ellathileme in the issue undu. Edavadhu oru Sri Ragathila Prayogam verum, which we will find it is hitting against our grain of the Raga. But then that is maybe our problem, not the Varnam's problem. So who are we to change things? To change things is very easy, to put it in a bracket. But I sometimes believe that we can persist with, if you look at the Balahamsa Varna of Subramanian Dikshiter, it's so fascinating. All the Balamahamsa that we know, many of the phrases are outside that framework. But then that was the form that was existing at that time. So we have to be able to respect that. Sarvabhauma Sakala Lokabhiramama Padama Padanidama Padanidama Dama Pagamapa Nidapa Magarigasa Risani Padasa Rigama Rigama Gama Rigasa Pama Pagamaga Nidani Pada Pasanida Riza Nidaba Dazarigama Gasa Nidama Padasa Gapadasa Sarigama Panida Sarigama Padasa Rigasa So here you find that the Aroha step-by-step building, it is as if Kamboji is built brick by brick, level by level, story by story. So ma padama padanidama padanidama dama pagamapa. So this set of phrases, like a yati going on. Ma padama padanidama padanidama dama pagamapa. So like mridanga yati. Nida pa magari gaza disani padasa rigama rigama gama rigasa pa ma pagama ganida ni pada pasa nida risaga nida padasa rigama gasa nida ma padasa ga padasa sarigama pa nida sarigama padasa rigasa. This ga padasa sarigama pa nida sarigama. This kind of building of the raga, either from top to below or from below to top. In musical phrase structure building up, we don't have to bother about gravity. Right? A building we have to always build from below. But musical structure we can also start from Padasa maga padasa sarigama padasa risa nida pa maga risa padasa rigama padasa. I can have a structure which begins in the upper regions. So you will find that even in Sarvabhauma Sakala Padasariga Sarigamapa Magapadasa, this kind of building structure. So it's very easy to sing an alapana if you know the varnam well. The activity of Aroha, the activity of Avaroha, if you are able to identify how the mechanisms are very different. Even in Kamboji, you'll find the upward movement very ornate, very deliberate, whereas the downward movements are all fast and brilliant. So the story is being told more in the Aroha, and the downward Avaroha phrases are all resolution phrases. Anyway, in a workshop I can demonstrate a lot of these things, but here you can just remember that the Aroha phrases can have a different feel than the Avaroha phrases. Sa ri ga ri sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa ni pa da sa pa da sa ri sa ri ga ma ga ma pa ma pa da ri sa ni da pa ma pa da sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa ni pa da sa ri ga ma ga ma pa da sa ni da pa da sa. Again, that building block. Pa da sa ri sa and pa da sa ri ga ma pa ma pa da sa ni da pa da sa. Sarigama pada maga pada sani pada sariga maga risa ni da pa maga pada sariga maga sa pa sani da pa maga risa pada sariga maga ma pada sarvabhauma. So you have the same thing of pada sariga maga ma pada sa. Instead of tracing the Aroha fully, it is in steps. Pada sarigama gama pada sa. So the philosophy of the way the raga pulls itself and develops itself is very clear to me. So in an alapana, if you are able to sing a lot of these things without you recognizing it and without even the audience, Rasikas recognizing it, the feel of Kamboji gets established. Okay, let me touch upon Muthuswami Dikshitar's Navavarnam in Kamboji and see how the same philosophy, when I mention same philosophy, it doesn't mean the philosophy is easy. The principle is easy, right? Ahimsa as a principle is easy, right? But try putting it into practice every moment of your life. That is the tough part. So as a philosophy, Kamboji, the principles are not very difficult. But when you start executing them, they will reveal their complexity. I will just sing you the ending portions of the Anupalavi and Charanam for you to get an idea of how it can be a great source of ideas for the musician and for the listener also. the vakra prayogas, the dhatu elements involved in the creating of the structure of the phrase. Kamala Nagara Viharinyai. So, Riga sa Riga ma pa ma da pa. Kala samuha samharinyai. Sabada ri sari. Kamaniya ratnaharinyai. Kalikalmasha pariharinyai. Kamalambi kayai. Kanakamsu kayai. Karpura vidikayai. Namaste, namaste. So you have the idea of these four phrases. Kamala Nagara Samaga Prayoga, which we don't find much in Kamboji being sung, but it is a very beautiful phrase. Kamala Nagara Viharinyai. Kala samuha samharinyai. Sapadari sari. Kamaniya ratnaharinyai. Kalikalmasha pariharinyai. Kamala. So Rigama Vadagapa. That kind of prayoga, which we use so much in Alapana. Similarly, after the charanam also, Sakumkumadile. Here he chooses the first phrase to end on Daivata. Chara charadi kalpanayai. Chikura vijita nilaghanayai. Chidananda purna ghanayai. Kamala. So the heaviness of the raga, even though it's a brilliant raga, it can also be very, very kingly. I like to think of Kamboji as the commander-in-chief of the kingdom. Because it is Kamboji who goes out to war. Shankarabharanam is a beautiful, wise king. Kalyani, with all her embellishments and adornments and, her grace, is the queen. Somebody has to fight the wars. So Kamboji is sent out to fight. Because the Kamboji has that personality, that power, that sense of achieving something, of victory. Katile Palmulam. There's a very famous Malayalam song. Da 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 na Patile Palari Tirtavale. So here also we see that victory coming out. Sense of victory is very essential to the aesthetics of Kamboja. So I will just take up this padam, a couple of lines, and see how to build up in terms of the alapana, the ideas, how to make this raga larger than life. The padams are also a playground where very simple phrases get ornamented to such a great extent. If you listen to the kampita that I will do now in this padam, the varieties of kampita. Kampita is a kind of a gamaka, which is like an oscillation. We will see that now. Balavina ve varada abala. That first phrase itself. Pa maga ellarum kettirukkel. Pa maga bala vina ve varada Gopaluni pai పైవటి బ్రహ్మలు balavina. Only the third Sangati is the standard Kamboji Sangati in this Padam. Pamaga Pada. First is Bala. It's very rare. You will never find. Only somebody who has learned Padams will have an idea of this idea of Kamboji. Bala Vinave Barada Gopaluni Pai Vati Brahmalu Yalane Va Ni Pai Marulu Valu Gantiro So the stretching out of the raga. Chinnanati, the brilliance of the raga. Chinnanati modalu vani. Chinnanati, Chinnanati. That that prayoga, which calls for a great amount of energy actually. பளிச்சும் வரணும், அழகாவும் இருக்கணும், ஹார்ஷாவும் இருக்கக்கூடாது. எப்படி பண்றது? அந்த சங்கதியை கத்தி பாடலாம், அது ஈஸி. நிறைய பேர் அப்படி தான் பாடுறா. பட் டெலிகேட்டாகவும் பாடணும், அழகாகவும் இருக்கணும், பவரும் இருக்கணும், கிறிஸ்பாவும் இருக்கணும். கரெக்டாக அந்த சகனித நீதா 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 அந்த கிறிஸ்ப்னஸ். சின்ன நாட்டி அந்த தெய்வத்தை டிலே பண்ணி டி 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 சின்ன நாட்டி மோதலு வா. The next Devata is like a beautiful calm lake. The first phrase was very active. Modalu vani chinna lake lo naiti. So in a padam, in these lines, you see how each line reveals so much beauty. You know? Chinnalake, Chinnalake, lo naiti. That paridama, again a very powerful prayoga in Kamboji. So these can form, if you know the composition well, these can form a very beautiful matrix for you to build your manodharma on. You know, Vishnudev will demonstrate some of those things today when he does his alapana and tanam. As to how, that is why this raga provides for a lot of virtuosity. Speed, virtuosity, brika, urti perti padla. You know, it provides for such a matrix. If you listen to G. N. Balasubramaniam sing Kamboji, you will know. na na ta na 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 tara na 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 இந்த மாதிரி ஊருட்டி பறிச்சுட்டே இருக்கலாம். The inspiration for such activity, I am rushing through it. That's why some of the Sankatis are not coming out properly. But the idea is that the Kriti can give you all these, Sri Subramanyaya Namaste, again, a treasure house of phrases of Kamboji. ஸ்வரம் பாடுறதுக்கு ரொம்ப அழகான ஒரு ராகம் கல்பனா ஸ்வரம். நெரவல் பாடுறதுக்கு அஃப்கோர்ஸ் வாசவாதி சகல தேவால பாடுறதுக்கு. பட் இந்த ராகத்தில் அந்த ஒரு மெஜஸ்டிக் கேட் இருக்கிறதுனால it also provides a very beautiful tapestry for kalpana swara. Like there are ragas which lend themselves por sahanaliyo ananda bhairivilo swaram podla, definitely swaram podla. In fact, I sang Ananda Bhairavi as a main during the season, where I put swara for long, but that was more for myself. In sense that Ananda Bhairavi may not lend itself to such comprehensive kalpana swara, or a Kedaram will not lend itself to comprehensive kalpana. We can always prove a point and say, I sang it for 20 minutes. That is just your ego speaking. That is not Raga Tattva or Adaga speaking. So, பாடுறதுக்கு சாமர்த்தியம் காட்டுறதுல என்ன இருக்குது? நிறைய பேருக்கு சாமர்த்தியம் இருக்குது. குட் சென்ஸ், குட் ஜட்மெண்ட் தான் கொஞ்சம் கம்மியாக இருக்குது. ஸோ பட் காம்போஜி மாதிரி ராகத்தில் பாடலாம் ஏராளமாக. ஒரு 1 hour ஸ்வரம் போட்டாலும் அழுக்காது. பாடுறதுக்கும் அழுக்காது, கேட்குற வாழ்க்கும் அழுக்காது. பிகாஸ் இந்த ராகத்தில் அந்த ஒரு கேட் இருக்குது, ஒரு மெஜஸ்டி இருக்குது. தனி தத பத தத பதரி தனி தப்பா தவ மக மப பதனி தத பமக பதசனி தத பம பத பதனி த மத பப மக மகரி சரி கக மகரி கமகரி சரி கமகர சரி கம பத பமக மக பதரி சனி தத பமக மகரி சரி கமகரி சரி சனி ப பத பத சரி கமகரி சத பமக பத சமக பத சரி கமகரி சனி த பதரி சனி த பத பமக ப. ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி அந்த ஒரு கேட் the ragam affords that தசரி சனி த பதரி சனி தத பமக பத. And because it affords that aesthetic of step by step structure. Gaga maga maga gaga gari gaga gari sari ri dadari dadari ri sari gari sari gaga எல்லாமே ஸ்டெப் தான். ரி கம கரி கமம்மா மப மம கரி சரி gaga maga maga ri sari ri gari gari sani da bada sa bada bada sa da 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 ri ri sari sari ga maga ri 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 sani da ba da sari gama gaga gama pa maga ri ga sari ga. So Madhumani hears that very beautiful portion in Gandhara. Gaga maga maga gaga ga. You just repeat the swaras beautifully, good pronunciation and in proper sthana. Gaga maga maga gaga gaga gaga. Adhe alagar. Ri ga maga mari ri 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 sa za ri ga maga sa za ni da ba pa da za ni da ba da ri sa za ni da ba da ga ri sa za ni da ba pa da za ri ga pa da za ri ga maga ri ga maga za ri ri da da ri sa ni ni da da ba maga pa da za ri ga maga za ni da ba da ba maga ri sa sa ri ga ma pa za ri ga ma pa da sa za ri ga ma pa da za ri ga ma maga ri sa ni da ba da maga pa da ga ri pa da ri sa ni da ba da ba maga ba da sa ba da Sabadharisa. So on the ragathukku avlo energy. There are a lot of theoretical things which you can read up. Today we have, if you want to know about the raga, if you want the raga to mean more to you, if you want to get more intimate with the raga, we have so much of resources at our fingertips today. you know. So I would encourage all of you to go read about the history of the raga. You know, how beautiful reading history can be. After a certain age, history becomes more, of course in school we study history and we are bored of the Battle of Panipat and these dates and that dates and all that. Tipu Sultan, we don't take much interest. But little later in life, we realize that history reading is going deeper into oneself. So to know the history of a raga means that you begin to know the raga better, you know. So just not be rooted in the present and say, this is how I'm listening to only my generation singers, all of whom attract great crowds, and this is Kamboji. No, this is not Kamboji. Kamboji has been interpreted so wonderfully and masterfully by so many great artists. So read about all that, listen to, you know, some of the memorable Kambojis that I have heard personally is of course Mudhra Iyer, Arya Kudi, even Samangudi Mama, with his limited resources of his voice, will sing us Subramania Namaste so beautifully. TVS sir, TNS sir, all of them sing Kamboji so wonderfully. T.N. Krishnan sir plays Kamboji very beautifully in his own touch of aesthetics of the raga. So this is how, you know, one starts cherishing the raga more and more. I think this series has been organized for you to understand, to start on that process or to continue in the process of getting to know the ragas as very beautiful living beings, so that the compositions that you hear, listen to the alapanes, the neravals, the tanams. Tanam also Kamboji is very suitable because it has that gait. Anum tada, anum tada, anum tada. Tanum tada, num 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 tada. Anum tada, num tada, num tada, num tada, anum tada, num tada, anum tada, anum tada. To keep the raga from touching on nishada on the aroha is a big challenge. Many of my students, even a couple of Kambojis that I heard during this season, inge vanda na na vandudum. Vandudradhu. And the nishadata pura avoid pandradhu arohala is a very necessary condition for Kamboji. Tara na na. Even in a gamaka, na na. Sada sada da andrukanam. Na. Apdi vidakudam. Vidamudiyad. Na na. Na na. It has to completely come to dha. So those small things we can also watch out for. Anumta, anumta. Dhanida is there. Anumta, 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 anumta. So I thank Bhaskar ji and Radha ji for this very wonderful initiative where we have to start making listening experiences more interesting, meaningful places where we can grow. You know, what's the point of listening to music for, say, I've been listening, I'm a Rasika for 40 years and not knowing anything about what you have done in the past 40 years. So very informed listening which will take you deeper into your own consciousness of the music and enjoyment of the same. So I really thank Radha and Bhaskar for this very wonderful idea, and for that we have to give a big round of applause for the initiative. Thank you so much. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you.